Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another edition of Friday Night Live on Friday, the 9th of May, 2025. I'm your host, Abdul Akbar, and we're beaming out to the good people of Luton and surrounding areas tonight, and also to the good people of Sheffield, Nottingham, Derby, Peterborough, and the Midlands through our partner stations across the nation. And joining me in the studio right now also is Zafar Sahab. Zafar Sahab, I nearly panicked there, Pakistan, because we didn't have a nice London skyline for a second. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
I can see our producer screaming at the background. There we go. But we are on the line right now, and we are beaming out on Inspire FM, and also, as I mentioned, through our partner stations across the nation. And wow, what a last few days it has been, Zafar Saab, of course, with all the challenges happening in the South Asian subcontinent.
Indeed.
How are you feeling about it?
Briefly. I have
briefly.
family over there, so
Yeah.
I'm a little bit apprehensive. I've been in touch with them daily.
Yeah.
They seem to be pretty calm about it, although I think when it kicked off, when the missiles started.
Couple of missiles here and there. Yeah, I know. It's not a couple, though. It's turning into a pretty bad situation.
There were.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of a panic.
Yes.
People got used to the fact that, this is a new realm we're living in.
Well, the WhatsApp wire went nuts, right? A couple of nights ago. Obviously, naturally, people across the UK who have family in both sides of the conflict clearly were very concerned. But do you know what, everyone? What's interesting is that tonight's edition of Friday Night Live is a special edition because we're going to spend the entire hour on this very situation, the crisis that is gripping South Asia and has, frankly, alarmed the world. The escalating conflict between India and Pakistan. Now, tensions have surged following the April 22nd Pahalgam attack, where 27 civilians, it's been reported, including 25 Hindu tourists, were killed in Indian-administered Kashmir. Now, India attributes the attack to Pakistan-based militants, prompting recently Operation Sindoor, which the Modi government made a lot of noise about, saying they're responding to so-called terrorist attacks. Now, Operation Sindoor was a series of missile strikes. We've all seen the pictures on the news, whichever side you're on, and they were targeting alleged terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. Now, Pakistan denies involvement and has responded with claims of downing Indian jets and intercepting their drones. Now, the situation has led to civilian casualties on both sides and heightened fears of a broader conflict between these nuclear-armed neighbors. Now, guess what, listeners and viewers? To delve into the complexities of this crisis, we're joined by some very special guests tonight. We're very lucky to be joined by these people. In a moment, we'll be joined by Zahir Shah Shirazi. We're going to get him on the line. He's not joined our panel just yet, but he will join us later on tonight's program, probably in this first part. He is a veteran journalist and editor-in-chief of Daily Nawai Pakistan, which is a newspaper. But right now, I'm delighted to let on the line Amardeep Bassi. So we're going to let him on the line right now, a freelance journalist and senior lecturer in investigative journalism at De Montfort University, a great institution with extensive experience reporting on South Asia. He specializes in in-depth investigations on crime, terrorism, and social affairs, and we think he's perfect for this segment. Good evening, Amar. How's it going, Amardeep?
Yeah, good, thanks. Just enjoying the sun.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. We're grateful for your time on Friday Night Live. Now, Amardeep, you've covered terrorism and extremism extensively. My question to you is, do you believe this attack in Pahalgam was a genuine terror incident or a geopolitical trigger event?
When you say a geopolitical trigger event, are you saying that it was a staged attack, that it wasn't terrorists who did it?
Yeah, potentially. That's what the Pakistani side there may be some voices from the Pakistani side saying this is potentially the Modi government that staged this in order to create the environment, the political environment, to be able to do what's happening right now. Your thoughts?
It's certainly plausible, and there is, maybe you could say, some precedent to that. Some of your listeners might remember an incident, I think it was in 2000, in Kashmir, in a place called Shati Singhpura, which was mainly inhabited by Sikhs. And at that time, it was similar circumstances. There was a visit from a Clinton administration diplomat to India. Just as the same now, there was a diplomatic visit from a US diplomat to India. And in 2000, what happened was about 35 Sikhs were massacred in a village. And it was all attributed to, I think, Lashkar-e-Taiba or, Pakistani terrorists, etc., etc. Now, what's interesting about that case was 5 days after that attack, the Indians claimed to have killed 5 Pakistani militants in a nearby village. And basically, case closed. We found the guys who did this massacre. Even though the villagers at that village had said, these people that you've murdered aren't terrorists, you've just randomly picked 5 people from our village and killed them so that you can blame them. Again, we might think, well, it's their word against the villagers' word, but ultimately the bodies were dug up and DNA tests were conducted on them. And none of them were who the Indian government had said they were. They weren't even Pakistani. They were villagers from Kashmir who India had, deliberately killed, even though they were innocent, to then attribute the Sikh attack on these people that we've killed the militants, even though they killed 5 innocent people. So there is a precedent for this. It is plausible that it is what we would call a false flag operation. Again, very similar American diplomat visits. This happens. The modus operandi and the circumstances are very similar. So it's not unbelievable. And again, I don't know about you or any of your listeners. Again, I've yet to see any evidence that India talks about of blaming Pakistan. I haven't seen a name of any terrorist. I haven't seen any background. So where is this evidence?
This is the confusing thing, Amardeep, and I want to come in on that because that was actually going to be my next question to you. And somebody who is an investigative journalist, clearly you're very used to trying to find the facts and the data from different sources and trying to figure out what's going on. And here's the weird thing. As I've been watching the build up to, the action that India took a few nights ago, it's quite interesting that Pakistan has been saying that quite clearly they expect India to retaliate to what's happened. But they've also been saying, listen, it wasn't us. We're putting our hands up. We're just saying now for the record, it wasn't us. And please, India, if you think it was us, can you please just show us the evidence that indicates to you that it was us? Because we know it's not us. And India has really kind of skipped this question. Amardeep, I'm going to come back to you on that question in a moment, but we've got some callers on the line that I want to take and maybe get your reactions on as well. Again, as somebody independent here, not necessarily taking a side, but just giving your thoughts, whatever they may be. So we appreciate your time. So let's just go to the double shot with Zabasab and I, and let's go to the caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum, caller. You're live on the radio. Caller, are you there? Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear us? All right, we're just going to get the caller on the line. We can't hear them at the moment. One more time. Assalamu alaikum, caller.
Walaikum assalam, you okay?
Yes, you're live on the radio. Where are you calling from tonight?
Luton. My name is Saf.
Thanks for calling, Saf. What are your thoughts on what's happening right now in South Asia, in Pakistan and India?
I'm not happy, obviously. I have my own opinions on it, and I don't think a lot of people are going to like this opinion.
Okay, go ahead. Just keep it clean and clean for the airwaves, please. Go for it.
I think what happened between India and Pakistan is the same thing that's happening between Gaza and Israel. It was an inside attack for them, and they needed an excuse to start the war.
That's interesting. And what makes you think that?
Obviously, everyone knows that the attack on the innocent Kashmiris have been going on for a long time. And the borderline war has been going on for years now. And they obviously needed some excuse to start an all-out war. And this is just an excuse for the Prime Minister Modi to, I don't know, he's just a bad person.
And I'm assuming you're from the Pakistani side. Do you have connections?
I'm from Kashmir myself.
Okay.
Yeah, Pakistan, if I had to choose, it's Islamic State, so I'd rather go for that.
All right, and I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing that. And how does that make you feel? I mean, were you personally impacted by what's happened in the Kashmiri side?
Obviously, my dad's background, he's from back home, and obviously it's upsetting him a lot with all this innocent news. And the innocents that are going to get involved and injured, and the deaths that will be coming up, is going to be horrendous.
Well, listen, we wish your family and everyone safety in the region. Frankly speaking, whichever side they're on, civilians are civilians, and they're sometimes often caught up in the crossfire. And
I don't think the politicians have enough. I was going to use a bad word there, but I don't think they've got guts to face each other and then send out the innocents. That's all they do.
I hear that. You know what? I really appreciate you censoring yourself because it is an emotional time. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you for calling. Appreciate your time, Saf. Thank you so much. So, listeners, 01582 481 822. If you want to take part in tonight's conversation, we are asking the question between Pakistan and India, given all the action that we're seeing today, which is Zafar Saab, our drone strikes as well.
That's right. Yeah, the last yesterday and day before there was some drone strikes from both sides, basically claimed. So India's claimed that 300 to 400 drones entered the Indian territory, basically, and some of them were actually shot down. Others they haven't sort of mentioned. Similarly, they sent. Pakistan said 25 drones were entered the Pakistani side, and they managed to attack Rawalpindi, Lahore, Bahawalpur, and a few other places, basically. And there's some damage that was reported.
Wow.
But I think picking up on the points that Amandeep has actually mentioned, I think there's a wider context that probably needs to be on the table when people want to make a judgment. I think we have to leave it to the people to make the judgment. And the key things that we need to bring to the table really is first and foremost, the standoff, I guess, between America and China, the revised or renewed, I guess, focus on Chinese relationship with America. That's prime. India's recent trade deal, which included development and purchasing of the F-35 planes, as pertinent, I think, and the visit also of the American Secretary of State, basically, to India as well, who actually has connections with India. So that's a pertinent fact I think we need to bear in mind.
Yeah.
The other thing that you have to bear in mind is what's happening, I guess, within Pakistan too, which I think, if you wanted to sort of bring fairness to the discussion, we need to bring that to the table as well. So after the attacks, the Indian attacks on Pakistan, the compromised the Supreme Court, basically, where judges are appointed by politicians to judge cases about politicians, they basically gave the green light to the military to try civilians in a military court. I think that's a pertinent fact for the discussion.
Hold that thought.
Finally, one more thing we need to bring to the table, really, also is the fact that Imran Khan has been summoned, basically, to give polygraph tests day after the court had issued this verdict.
Interesting. I like the way you're slipping in Imran Khan there as well. Very, very nice to see the analysis.
I think there's political political instability in Pakistan, which needs to be factored into the discussion.
There is, and there's lots of instability, and maybe actors are actually exploiting that as well in this sensitive time for the country. But who knows? Let's go to our experts on the line right now, because listeners, if you're tuning in right now, this is Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Zafar Iqbal Saab. We are, of course, talking about the situation, the developing situation between Pakistan and India. We know that Operation Sindoor took place a few nights ago, and there has been a retaliation from Pakistan, and Pakistan is calling this an unprovoked, unjustified attack on sovereign territory. On the line right now, I've got two very special guests. Joining us right now is Zahir Shah Shirazi. We're going to let him on the line as well. And also Amandeep Bassi. Zahir Shah Saab is a veteran journalist and editor-in-chief of Daily Nawai-e-Pakistan with over 30 years of experience reporting from conflict zones. His work focuses on peace, development, human rights, and counterterrorism. Of course, I've already introduced Amandeep Bassi. He's a freelance journalist and senior lecturer in investigative journalism at De Montfort University. So if I may go to Zahir Shah Saab first. Thanks for joining us, Zahir Shah Saab. We appreciate your time and your input on this very important topic. Let me ask you this, first of all, Zahir Shah Saab, which is, as someone who's reported extensively from conflict zones, how would you assess the credibility of the claims made by both India and Pakistan in the current escalation?
Well, thank you very much, Akbar, for your time and inviting me to speak at your show. Apparently, it looks more or less a kind of a media war, and obviously, I think this, fifth generation warfare, which to some extent both countries are, fighting. But apparently, on ground, the things we have seen, earlier you were saying that perhaps it's a provocation and violation of Pakistan's sovereignty. It's so very much like visible now. If you are attacking with some of the latest aircraft and sending drones for the entire like almost 48 hours. So obviously this is a thing which would be worrisome for every country. As far as this incident after which Indians have made a precedent and started targeting Pakistan, I think the media on Indian side, it has been more kind of a warmongering type of a tool, and it is mostly believed that it's showing the government line. Now, I am sitting in Peshawar. I started getting calls from United States, from UK, from my relatives that, oh, you are safe because we are hearing on the Indian media that the entire Peshawar city has been destroyed. So how you going to justify this thing? The same is happening, entirely when the attacks were carried out against Pakistan. It was constantly being propagated that perhaps some militant sites have been hit. It has been linked previously to the LET or Jaish-e-Mohammed or the other militant group which the Indian government is claiming perhaps are involved in the incident which took 26 lives in Indian-held Kashmir. Obviously, these groups do had a militant background. They had been accused earlier, rather they were supporting the freedom movement inside the Indian occupied Kashmir, and now it's very much visible. Apart from that, I think Pakistani claims now they're also claiming they have shot down some of the latest aircraft, including the French Rafale as well as MiG and Mirage.
Is that
But
true?
obviously now the things have started coming up. The social media now, the French authorities have also confirmed. So the claims and counterclaims would be going on. But the important issue is what was the point of escalation? If Pakistan had offered for an independent inquiry, they have requested UK, even United Nations Security Council, the international community, that to come over and probe this incident. But I think India, despite being like approached by some of the friendly countries, it is resorting to a kind of aggression against Pakistan. And Pakistan repeatedly had been asking that they would be replying in the same coin. So we cannot predict at this moment whether this thing is going to escalate or not. But
Okay.
obviously, the way
Yeah.
this war hysteria is going on, I think things would be very much dangerous. It's not only
Very
India
interesting.
and Pakistan, this entire
Right,
region
so
is in danger.
stay there, Sasha, because I want to bring in Amadi Bassi as well, to get his perspectives on what you just said as well, which is the credibility of what's going on. And I would love to ask you, Amadi, specifically around your understanding of what your interpretation is in terms of why the Modi government is kind of graciously ignoring requests for evidence and also kind of just bypassing any request for any kind of inquiry, which, as we've just heard from Zahir Shah Sahab. So my question to you would be, why would they do that? And we also, as you heard earlier, the caller on the line was suggesting this is right out of the Israeli playbook and what Israel has been doing to the Palestinians in Gaza. Do you feel as though India has been emboldened by the situation in Israel and is using that maybe as a template to manage the situation in Kashmir in their favor?
Not just Israel, they're being emboldened by what's been happening over the last 30 years with America as well, with what Putin is doing. And the question I suppose I'll throw back to you is why should they, or why would they want an outside country to investigate? That seems to suggest that we can't investigate it ourselves. It kind of impinges on their sovereignty, and that's the last thing they want. So they are just going through the copybook, which we've seen for the last 30 years, which is might is right. And India is an economic powerhouse. Everybody wants to do business with India. So every country will do as it's told, as far as India is concerned. We've seen that recently with the trade deal with India and the UK. Again, they were using people as pawns for that, really. So yeah, for me, it's quite obvious India wouldn't accept any kind of help or any kind of outside investigation. They would probably bring something up like when 9/11 happened, America went to Afghanistan and said we're going to Afghanistan because we want to get bin Laden because he planned 9/11. They didn't present any evidence to Afghanistan to say that he planned 9/11. And so India is basically going to say, well, America didn't have to give evidence. Israel didn't have to give evidence. Vladimir Putin didn't have to give evidence. We're in the age of the strongman and the kind of dictatorships, you could say, and right-wing dictatorships at that. So, yeah, India's a powerhouse. It's flexing its muscles. It's good timing for India at the moment with what's happening in Israel, and also knowing that Trump is, going towards isolationism with America. Doesn't want to get involved in wars, so he doesn't have to worry about America getting involved and stopping him. Having said all that, I don't think any of this will escalate. I think we've been here before several times. Okay, maybe there's been 1 or 2 missiles more than there was before, but it's in nobody's interest to escalate it. Nobody will allow it to be escalated. These are 2 nuclear powers. So, it's a very kind of sensitive and strategic region. You've got China, Southeast Asia, obviously, Russia. None of those are going to let that area destabilize. And I don't think India wants to either. India is just kind of, again, as I said, flexing its muscles, showing that as well as economically, we are also a power militarily.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks for sharing that. Zahir Shah Saab, your reactions to what you've just heard from our other guest.
Well, I think I would support what the honorable guest was saying. Perhaps India wanted to, being a policeman of this area, but I doubt that the first day and the reply by Pakistan. I think Afghanistan, Gaza, Rafah, and all these things. Yes, the Israeli military had been bombing them, but still Hamas is there for the last 2 years. Americans are bombing Yemenis, but still the Houthis are a serious threat to them. But Pakistan had a kind of geographically, if we can say, China would obviously has openly extended its support to Pakistan and safeguard. And the reason the other countries in this region, obviously the Middle Eastern countries are a little bit of shy and they are not condemning India what it had been doing it. But obviously, I think Pakistan is not such a weak state. It has a powerful military. It has shown its muscle also. It has replied back in the same coin. And obviously, at this moment, we are not saying that it could be a kind of a full-scale war. But if the Indian aggression continues, I think Pakistan had repeatedly, replied that it would be, using its, the right to strike back and avenge these atrocities. And even the nuclear deterrence. Obviously, we are not saying that there should be a nuclear war, but this is a very technically a very dangerous situation because 3 neighbor countries, China, Pakistan, and India, they are nuclear states. And if anything happens, in one way or the other, Chinese would never accept Indian hegemony in this area because Kashmir is also part that China is claiming. And on the other hand, I think the U.S. involvement today, we have seen the U.S. Vice President's statement that they are showing neutrality, and they could not ask India or Pakistan. They would say neutral. But I would say neutrality means U.S. is siding with the India. And as the patron, if we see, it's a kind of a ideology which had been, transported from Israel, the Netanyahu's Zionist lobby. I think the Modi's response is not that different from the Hindutva and that form of the RSS ideology. This is very much clear. Okay. And even if India is a big power, but India do have a lot of internal problems. People have started raising voices. The Sikhs are openly condemning what India is doing. There are more than 17, 18 separatist movements going on. The Indians are not only hostile towards Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, even Bangladesh is not with them. So I think India is also regionally isolated. And if it would try to,
Zahir Shah, there's definitely a lot to unpack there. Sorry to interrupt you. And I know we've actually run out of time for this part of tonight's program, but let me go ahead and thank you both so much, Zahir Shah Shirazi and also Amadeep Bassi, for your time. Very quickly, if you don't mind.
Can I make one point? One thing that's been forgotten in all of this is the Kashmiris. You got Pakistan and you got India both claiming Kashmir. Has anybody asked the Kashmiris what they want to do? Because a lot of them don't want to be with either country, and their voice is rare.
Absolutely. Well, gents, we have to leave it there, and we're grateful for your time, and we hope we can have you back on this program to get your further analysis as this situation hopefully calms down. Let's see how it goes. We're not going to hold our breath, though. Thanks very much for joining us. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, listeners, this is Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Zafar Iqbal Saab, and we're going to take a very short break in a moment. But coming up after these messages, we are going to be talking to another very special guest, and we're going to be asking them a similar question around the conflict and just finding out on exactly where Pakistan and India are headed. Of course, Zafar Saab is here. We're going to get Zafar Saab's expert analysis on what's going on and try and digest what we can see in terms of forecasting for the future. Stay tuned. Friday Night Live. We'll be right back.
Assalamu alaikum. In Luton and its surrounding areas, it is now time for Salat al-Asr.
लुटन और इसके मज़ाफ़ात में नमाज असर का वक्त हुआ चाहता है.
This azan has been sponsored by Ideal Properties. Contact us on 01582 72 11110 or log on to www.idealpropertiesltd.co.uk.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على حي على الفلاح. حي على الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
Would you like to sponsor the azan? If so, give us a call on 01582 481810 or email us on info@inspirefm.org.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6:30.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to part 2 of tonight's edition of Friday Night Live on Friday, the 9th of May, 2025. I'm your host, Abdul Akbar, and we're joined in the studio here by Zafar Saab. And guess what? We're beaming out to the good people of Luton and surrounding areas tonight. and also the good people of Sheffield, Nottingham, Derby, Peterborough, and the Midlands through our partner stations across the nation. Now, sadly, we are talking about a very difficult situation that is unfolded and unfolding between Pakistan and India. And we're asking the question tonight, will this turn into all-out war? Today, as we've heard in part one from our guests, this is turning into something that nobody expected. But here's the vital question. The Pakistani government has been saying for weeks that they expect a retaliation from the Indian authorities. We've seen that retaliation take shape, and now we're seeing another retaliation from the Pakistani authorities, and it's turning into a tit-for-tat conflict, not necessarily with humans fighting on the ground, but actually drones in the air going over areas that nobody really expected. So we're going to be going on to our guest in a moment, but let me come to Zafar Saab. Zafar Saab, this is quite unique in that these are two nuclear armed neighbors.
Indeed.
And this is now developing into a drone war.
We're living in times basically where territorial integrity is no longer respected. We saw that in Ukraine with Putin. We saw that in Israel basically, and we've seen that in Kashmir. So we live in difficult times because we have there are machines and vehicles and tools basically to violate people's territorial integrity with ease. Now, to your question about basically where this is going to lead to, I think, in my opinion, so far there's two phases of this war, two sides of this war. One is the brutal aspect of it, which is in Kashmir, which is effectively an all-out war using shells and using rockets and aeroplanes, etc. And that's causing real damage to basically infrastructure, the armed posts, etc., civilians, casualties on both sides. So that's a real war happening in Kashmir, both the Pakistani occupied and Kashmiri, Pakistani administered and Kashmir Indian administered side, basically. But the other aspect is, in my opinion, is both Pakistan and India trying the defenses, basically, see how far they can get. So original Indian plan to attack these the sites they nominated, allegedly sites of where terrorists were to have been done by approximately 180 odd aeroplanes, warplanes, basically. They'd been moved from different areas. But they were actually, by reading articles in the Telegraph, etc., and a few other articles, they were actually roundly beaten. The Pakistani commentators were saying that they could have taken out a very large chunk of Western-facing Air Force of the Indian Air Force, and they could easily have done it based on the articles that we've seen so far, because China and Pakistan had helped. China helped Pakistan basically sort of identify and defend itself. And Pakistan is claiming 5 planes downed.
Okay.
Internationally, 3 have been recognized, etc. But it could have been more.
Have they been recognized?
At least 3 have been recognized. At least one of them.
Have there been pictures?
There's pictures and acknowledgements from the Indian sources, acknowledgements from US, acknowledgements from France as well.
Yeah.
So at least one Rafale.
That's quite embarrassing. That's quite embarrassing.
It is. Well, it is. It is embarrassing. So I think they had to resort to the second mode of attack, which is rockets. They use rockets basically, missiles, to attack those sites.
Yeah.
But they have caused limited damage, limited sort of and sort of isolated damage basically to the area. So that's okay. So they tested the Air Force, right, and they basically got beaten back, right. They got through, right, with defenses using rockets. Pakistan sent over drones to test out their technology and defense systems, really to find out where the defenses were, identify them, and locate them and pinpoint them basically, right, so that they can take defensive actions. Yeah. So it was really an exercise to fish out their defense system.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And India did the same thing, right? And they fished out, and they were, according to India, they effectively, Pakistan turned on their defenses and they managed to track it and knock it out.
Yeah, interesting.
Effectively. So,
okay.
So I think they're trying their defenses for the moment, really.
It is.
However, what's disturbing is that Indian naval force, including aircraft carrier, is now heading towards Karachi.
Wow.
And,
So
and
it looks like they're
that could
positioning
get serious.
themselves.
That could get serious.
So there's a strategic positioning taking place by
That's
India
right.
in
That's
terms of their navy as well. I'm not sure if Pakistan has a navy. Does Pakistan have a navy?
Pakistan's navy
Yeah.
used to be quite poor,
Yeah.
but in recent years, with help from China and Turkey, it is much improved.
Okay.
Right? So maybe India's trying to see how much improved the Pakistani naval defenses are.
Okay.
And then maybe they'll be tested.
Okay, well, guess what? Somebody on the line we've got right now, and I'll bring our next guest on. Thank you for that, Zavasab. Really interesting analysis there from you. But right now, we've got somebody on the line who has previously been a presenter on this very program, on this very radio station, Inspire FM, and now working with an Asian development bank as a senior consultant. A couple of months back only, he was heading Pakistan's largest radio network as programming head, and before that, he was hosting primetime shows on multiple news channels, so he'll feel right at home here on Friday Night Live. Let's go ahead and welcome Fahim Bhatti. Fahim Saab, Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Well, Islam Abdullah. Yeah, I'm good. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. Fine.
Grateful for your time this evening. So, Fahim, tell us first of all, what's the situation like in Pakistan? We've heard all kinds of news, rumors. Please give us some facts here, where people are saying that there have been attacks even as close to the capital as Rawalpindi. Is that true?
That's true. But before that, let me remind them, our Indian friends, that tea is fantastic, by the way. So that's a reminder of 2019. By the way, first of all, sitting here in Islamabad, in Pakistan, life is normal. People are going to their workplace, and kids are going to school, and workers are working, labor is working. So everything is normal here. So the war-mongering media of India and Indian government, the claims they are trying to make, and they're trying to give the impression that Pakistan is being dominated by Indian Air Force, Army, Navy, or whatever. I mean, it's all rubbish. Apologies for the word I just used. So the situation here in our country at the moment is that our country, including the whole nation, armed forces, children, elders, youngsters, they are charged up. And they're in a mood of saying that, okay, just bring it on. Let's go towards the facts. Pakistan's GDP is in billions, and Indians' GDP is in trillions of dollars, right? 4 trillion plus. We've got maybe more than 400 billion US dollars approximately. So if you compare, it's like Indian armed forces versus Pakistan armed forces. When we talk about numbers, just 600,000 Indian army is in Indian occupied Kashmir. And if you talk about numbers of Pakistan army, whole Pakistan army is about 600,000, right? So with these numbers, with the difference of GDP, and as they claim that they're emerging power in the region, that's a huge collapse of their armed forces strategy, their deterrence, their image, whatever you can call. So if we talk about 1965, they still remember M.M. Alam, and he still holds a record of 5 fighter jets were being hit down within 60 seconds. And now Rafale, 3 Rafale jets, MiG-29, Su-30 versus Pakistan. And I can confirm that exactly 80 plus Indian Air Force fighter planes, they were airborne on the same night. And the purpose was to give tough time to the air defense system of Pakistan so that they can take the advantage and attack Pakistan. But they couldn't do it. And by the way, the funny part was the victim formation for Rafale was given the name of Godzilla by the Indian Air Force. And of course, Godzilla is obsolete. It doesn't exist. And by the way, same
Interesting.
happened with Rafale victim formation.
Wow,
So that
amazing insights there, Fahim. Because if you think about it, one of the things, not even think about it, this is a fact as well. Pakistan has been saying for weeks that we're sensing, our intelligence is telling us, all the vibrations and tremors are telling us that India is going to attack us. And they were telling the world about this because it was clear that India was going to take some form of action. But one of the things that Pakistan has also been saying, as you very well know, is where's the evidence? Prove that the Pakistani authorities or Pakistan as a state has been behind it. Now, I don't think it's helped the fact that people like Bilal Bhutto have come on national TV, even in the UK, and said that Pakistan has always used terrorism to support other nations, and he cited a particular situation with the Soviet Union and the Taliban and supporting insurgency in Afghanistan through proxies. And now the British media, or some parts of it, are saying, well, there you go. Pakistan does have splinter groups within its territories, and therefore these splinter groups are proxies for Pakistan in order to carry out its so-called quote unquote dirty work.
India
How does
is
that
claiming.
stand with the general public? How does it stand with people like you, that kind of comment?
Okay, first of all, let's talk about India's claim about Pakistan as a terrorist state or a country or a state that supports terrorists or terrorist activities, right? So, what happened in Pahalgam? Those terrorists were they were carrying M4. So M4 is US made. It's a NATO weapon. So who gave them that NATO weapon? And another question is, all these terrorist activities going on in Pakistan, including Balochistan, including KP, other regions, all those terrorists are being equipped with the US military weapons that US armed forces left behind in Afghanistan. So first of all, it's a big game going on in this region. And secondly, if you talk about, do you remember the recent incident of Jafar Express in Balochistan?
Yes.
So we, being Pakistani, or the local journalists, local media there right at the moment when it happened, when it was happening, we were unable to get those visuals and photos and updates. But before us, the question is, how come Indian media was getting all those visuals and pictures and photos and the messages of those terrorists there in India? It's a big question. And then their ex-naval officer, he's still in Pakistan's custody. What was he doing here? Was he was he roaming around? Was he just going some other place and he just got lost, or he lost his GPS device, or was he here to have some tea, or was he here to have some dal chawal? Or it's a big question. We've got to prove. And another thing is, Pakistan's ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan, when there was escalation between Pakistan and India in 2019, he clearly said in the United Nations that India is going to do it again. It happened. Because if you see the track record, it's clear. And then, unfortunately, since 1947, India hasn't accepted Pakistan. So they call it a two-tongue. They want greater India. They want greater Punjab. So, it's clear that India hasn't accepted Pakistan. And if we forget about Pakistan, let's talk about India. There are so many separatist movements going on in India. Then, if the RSS mentality, who is Modi? Modi was banned in US till the day he became Prime Minister of India. And he was a butcher of, he is still known as butcher of Gujarat. And he talks about digging all those mosques and finding all those mandirs. it's a silly joke. What if I ask you to delete your
Definitely
house,
far right
claim that my
sentiment.
dad had a
Mm.
property there? Now
Mm.
you constructed your house on. I mean, it's a silly logic.
Yeah, I hear you. But what about Fahim? Tell me about on the ground, because as you mentioned, you're in Islamabad. You've got Rawalpindi right next door. Have you seen any images of any damage around the capital area? We've definitely seen images here in the UK in places like Gortley and surrounding areas, Muzaffarabad. But what about near the
I went
capital?
to the place where it happened. One was in Islamabad, another one was in Pindi. The Pindi, I saw that myself. And believe you me, I mean, people were charged, and there was no sign of uh, them being scared, or they were not worried at all. And it was, honestly speaking, I mean, it was some kind of uh, some kind of activity for youth and youngsters to be around there and clicking, capturing photos and making videos. And life was going on. I mean, it was normal.
Okay, interesting. And what do you
Damage
think,
was,
Fahim?
damage was not much visible. It was just few
Okay,
on
thank you
windows
for
and
that.
outside.
Last question, if I may, which is, what do you think? What do the Pakistanis believe on the ground that India is trying to achieve by carrying out this action, this provocative action from their point of view, from the Pakistani point, this provocative action? What is India trying to achieve by doing this? Because as
As
we all know, war helps nobody, nobody's economy. What's the game plan here from the Pakistani perspective?
as per my understanding, I mean, if I recall, like 10, 15 years back, we used to go through articles and columns, and it was at that time we couldn't believe that there are going to be wars among countries for water. So the main target and objective was to step back from Indus Water Treaty, and that's the main reason apparently. So that was the main point India wanted to go towards. So, but it's if it's about Pakistan's survival, the message is clear from Pakistan military, Pakistan government, that if it's about our survival, then it's do or die, right? So if it's that's so then I think Pakistan is going to take the last possible step for the survival.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Really, really powerful words there, Fahim Bhatti. Really appreciate your time tonight on Friday Night Live. We hope you stay safe, and we hope everyone affected by this conflict stay safe. And we appreciate your time once again. Thanks for joining us. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
All right, listeners, this is Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Zafar Iqbal Saab. Zafar Saab, let me go ahead and get your reactions, because clearly lots of insight there from Fahim on the line, giving the Pakistani vantage point, definitely on the ground there. What he's saying is nothing's really happening. It's very minor skirmishes or minor damage that has been inflicted on Pakistani soil, at least from his vantage point. Where do you see this going, Zafar Saab? Because what we just heard there from Fahim on the last bit that he mentioned, he reckons, and the word on the ground is that, or word on the street is that this is all about water and starving Pakistan of its water.
Yes, this is something that I didn't mention as a pertinent fact right at the beginning when I mentioned it. So last year, India basically, so this treaty, the water treaty that Pakistan and India have, the Indus water.
They've had it for decades, right?
They've had it since the 60s, basically,
Yeah.
the 50s and 60s, basically, and it was negotiated with the World Bank, mediated by the World Bank.
Yes.
So last year, India unilaterally asked the World Bank to basically revisit the treaty, so that they want to amend the terms of it, basically, right? Now, you know, the fact that the first thing they did was to turn off the water is pertinent.
Yes.
Because this is what they wanted. So the World Bank has shown little interest in getting involved because the treaty was a done deal.
Yeah.
Right. There's no need to revisit it again. Right. It was fair. It stood the test of time, etc. But India wanted to change the situation on the ground, and India has been working for the last 40 years to undermine that treaty. Right. So all of the dams upstream.
Yeah.
All of the dams come through Kashmir, basically. Most of them come through Kashmir, and India has dammed all of them, right? And it's in a position slowly to actually strangle Pakistan from a water perspective, basically. Yeah, and they can do it, and they have done it in one or two rivers already. They turned off the tap.
So
basically,
it's definitely being used as a strategic tool.
it has
Yeah.
been. But the thing is, Pakistan has been playing the game all wrong. Pakistan has been claiming this to be a freedom for Kashmiris, etc. That's been their outward sort of way of expressing interest in that region and stir up sort of the people up there. But in reality, when the Pakistan government says that Kashmir is our jugular vein, what they really mean is that blood flows and water flows through our veins through Kashmir, right? And if India turns that off, right, Pakistan is going to be in deep trouble.
All right.
And they are in a position to do that.
All right. I just want to get another guest on the line. Just in the last few minutes we've got left. So we're going to let that guest on the line. Assalamu alaikum. It's a very special guest as well, Said Saab. Said Saab, assalamu alaikum. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
We appreciate your time and just want to get the latest from you. I don't know if you heard some of our conversation, but would love to get your analysis on where you think this is going, especially in light of all the drone attacks we've seen over the last 24 hours between both sides. Go for it. We have a couple of minutes left.
Well, first of all, these drone attacks, which actually came onto Pakistani territory, was initiated by the Indians. These are the Harap Israeli drones, very similar drones that were actually used on Gaza and the West Bank as well. They have, loitering capabilities as well as the ability to have an extensive payload. They can wreak havoc if they're not detected. So India launched these drones yesterday on Rawalpindi and Lahore, and Rawalpindi is obviously the home of the Pakistan Army, the general headquarters. So this was clearly initiated by Chaklala, absolutely. So it was clearly initiated by the Indians, and now the Indians have been coming up with these false claims, and I could say false because the Pakistan Army and the Pakistani state has officially denied it, that we attacked cities such as Amritsar, as well as you could say Pathankot and Poonch as well, which is in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And it's interesting when they mentioned Amritsar because Pakistan is Pakistan is the Makkah Medina for the Sikh religion. This is where Guru Nanak was born, and we do not believe. Hassan Abdal, absolutely. And we do not believe in alienating the Sikhs, and we believe in the Khalistan movement, which is to have an independent state for the Sikh community. So at this point in time, India has also accused us of launching drone attacks into their territory, which cannot be independently verified. This is just going to escalate. It's as simple as that. Pakistan, our army chief and our DG ISPR has made it extremely clear that the first initial attack on Pakistani territory, on Bhavalpur, as well as the cities of Muridke by the Indians, where innocent lives were lost, including a 7-year-old boy, that will be avenged. So when Western media and people in the United Kingdom have been calling for de-escalation, we have rebuffed that claim because under Article 51 of the UN Charter, we have a right to respond proportionally, and we are going to respond. And we are going to respond at a time and place of our choosing.
Yeah, I hear that. And Said Saab, let me ask you this, because Pakistan has been asking for weeks for evidence and an independent inquiry. To your knowledge, has India presented any evidence of the attack that it claims took place by the Pakistanis?
Absolutely not. They have, when the Pahalgam incident actually took place, we condemned it unequivocally. We claim that, Pakistan itself has been a victim of terrorism coming from groups in Afghanistan as well as in Balochistan here in my country as well. And we've been very unequivocal in our condemnation. And we asked for an impartial investigation, as you rightly pointed out. It's interesting, in 26/11, during the 2008 Mumbai attacks, they did present us a dossier. And that dossier was supposed to go through our courts. And that back then, Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister of India, and it was a Congress government. But even back then, they said, we don't trust your judicial system. And so we decided, okay, if you're not going to trust our judicial system, let's have an impartial inquiry. And India rebuffed that back then. This is the BJP government. This is a right-wing fascist government in New Delhi. They rebuffed our claims of an impartial investigation. They linked, as I mentioned in yesterday's show as well, they linked the resistance front with the Pakistani security agencies as well as the Pakistani state without any concrete evidence. And they decided to, violate international law by crossing over the international border and attacking our cities. Yeah. So without any evidence, they've decided to label Pakistan as a state sponsor of terror. And when we are claiming that we will not de-escalate, they would actually blame us as being the aggressor. It's just nonsense, coming from India.
Powerful
It's
words.
just
So
yeah.
we need to leave it there. But we really appreciate your joining us and
Thank
sharing your insights from your vantage point. We hope we can have you back on a future program just to get
For
your
sure.
analysis, because we love your analysis on this program, and I know our listeners do as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you
Take care.
so much. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum. Listeners, this has been Friday Night Live with me, Zafar Saab, and the rest of us here in the studio. We really hope and pray that everyone stays safe and that this escalation obviously calms down and that we're able to continue in peace. Until next week, take care. Assalamu alaikum.